Before we get started, this video has been a long-awaited request by many of the Subscribestar bros. Decided to ride the mecha trend a little bit longer, so why not cover an all-time classic series? One that's infinitely awesome and is a fun little gem in the mecha genre. It's time for Patlabor. Patlabor, short for Patrol Labor, is the mecha crime thriller series created by Headgear, a small collaboration between Masami Yuki, Mamoru Oshii, Kazunori Ito, Yutaka Uzubuchi, and Akemi Takada. The premise of Patlabor is this. In an alternate future, robotics have advanced far beyond than what we have now. Fully functional industrial and military mechs called labors in the story are widely distributed, with Japan being the major exporter of the technology. Thanks to this, the government creates a specialized unit of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police to handle any incidents revolving around mechs, from accidents to full-on terrorist situations. It's a small unit, and their already strained manpower is put to the test as the political situation gets more tense, going from simple hijackings and robberies to full-blown conspiracies. Now, Patlabor isn't the biggest series in the world, but it's decently plump. The manga ran for 22 volumes, which is a pretty good length, and other than that, you've had a few light novels, but the most famous aspect of the series is the anime adaptations. Patlabor has had more than a few animes under its belt, the famous 1989 anime that ran for 47 episodes, a quick 7-episode OVA that ran in 1988, another OVA made up of quick shorts in 2002, a reboot short in 2016, and the various films, Patlabor the movie, Patlabor 2, Patlabor 3. And you also had that weird live-action thing they did called The Next Generation. You get the idea, Patlabor's kind of big. There's a lot to talk about, so I'll try to keep things brief. The point is that there's a lot of Patlabor when you want to dig around for it, to the point you might stumble into more than you realize from just a simple Google search. Hell, I had no idea the live-action series even existed before making this video. And the best part? These are separated by timelines. The movie timeline is different from the anime timeline, which is different from the manga timeline, and Patlabor 3 is set between the first and second movie, so you want to watch that before Patlabor 2. Yeah, I'm just going to keep things simple here. You're here for big stompy robots, story details are for nerds. Patlabor is a fun franchise. Hell, in a lot of ways you can kind of view it as a sort of little brother to Ghost in the Shell, another major sci-fi soft cyberpunk franchise that Mamoru Oshii was involved with. It follows a lot of similar ideas. The encroachment of technology on everyday life, how it affects the global political landscape, and the various conspiracies that could develop with such a powerful advancement hitting the world. You also have a sort of kind of military law enforcement agency that specializes in technology-based crimes. Ghost in the Shell for hacking, Patlabor for mechs. That's not to say Patlabor's a ripoff or anything, no, this series has more than enough identity to set itself apart. For one, the tone is radically different. While Ghost in the Shell can get very somber and contemplative, at least anime-wise, the manga is pretty fucking goofy. Patlabor is all around more fun. Hell, more than once, it's more of a police comedy with a mecha skin draped over it, something that helps it stand out from the rest. One episode can be an in-depth breakdown of a tense political situation about to blow up into full-scale chaos, and another can be a goofier slice of life, exploring the members of the unit and fleshing out their personalities. You can tell the series was made by veterans of the industry, because a lot of elements of Patlabor just work. The characters are all memorable and likable, Noah in particular being the poster girl of the franchise. She's very peppy and energetic, embodying the tone of the series very well. It's all good fun, until it isn't. The designs for the labors also absolutely are standouts, managing a good balance between being practical and pure style. The industrial labors have a lot of thought put into them, being very bulky and clearly made for heavy-duty work, and the combat labors are sleek and intimidating. Hell, the police ones are all covered in police lights, almost like they just took a cop car and turned it into a big mech, like a transformer or something. I like it, I think it's really dope. Now, there are some goofy details to the combat battles, like how they hold giant revolvers. I mean, that's funny. I get why, because Japanese cops hold revolvers, that's their standard issue, but having it just be giant revolvers for the mechs that's funny. Still, Patlabor has a good grasp for when it should be real and when it should go full, it's giant robots, stop thinking about it. Now, the series will reference mecha anime existing in-universe, so it's fully aware the robots are out there and sort of pokes fun at different tropes and cliches from the genre. Nowhere near enough to call it a subversion, in fact it's a pretty sincere take on the concept, just with a wink and nod every now and then. Other than that, it tackles a lot of different sci-fi concepts very point-blank. From artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, hypothetical political situations, Patlabor puts a lot of thought into its world. It's also not afraid to dip into some weirder territory. Like, you have multiple ghost episodes, both in the original anime and the OVA, but I won't spoil how those turn out, they're pretty fun. Another interesting thing to mention is that despite a lot of it being pretty episodic, at least in regards to the original anime, there's more than a few occasions where the protagonists just screw everything up. They're not perfect, and they can be put into situations where they barely squeak out by the skin of their teeth, and these issues can compound and become larger problems down the line. Hell, a lot of the comedy scenes are the characters completely screwing up their job, either causing major damage to the city, getting into some less than optimal public relations situations, or just being hot-headed idiots. The characters are goofy, but the world around them is very grounded. At least, it can be. I mean, there's an entire episode in the OVA that's an extended Godzilla parody. It was funny. But when Patlabor gets serious, it dedicates fully. There are stakes involved, and things can get very in-depth. Patlabor 2 is probably the most dire of the entire franchise, as it explores the fallout of a major international incident that results in martial law, a military coup, and damn near World War III. He even abandons the lighter tone and fully sticks to being more grim and slow-paced. Visually, it even looks more like Ghost in the Shell or even outright Jinro, which makes sense. Mamoru Oshii worked on both, so yeah. The point is, Patlabor can either be a very goofy, almost slice-of-life police comedy, or a slow-paced, thoughtful political thriller. Not to say it doesn't have levity when it goes full thriller, but it's taking things way more serious than the anime or the OVA. It definitely works, since the idea is that a fan would be the one checking out the movies, so you're already invested in the world and its characters before it ramps up the stakes. The characters, speaking of, are all fun and likable. The protagonists, and I put that in quotes, of the series are Noa Izumi and Asama Shinohara. I use the term protagonist roughly because this is more of an ensemble story about the whole unit, but these two get a lot of focus. Noa is a plucky female officer that joins the unit just simply due to her love of mecha, both anime and the actual technology. She loves her labor so much that she treats it more like a puppy, even naming it Alphonse. Despite being a young, kinda dumb tomboy that just joined because she likes big robots, she is an exceptional fighter, being one of the heavy hitters for the team if something goes wrong. While a tad dim-witted, she's not completely stupid. She's got very good instincts, and can help figure out details other characters missed. Asuma is sort of the yin to Noah's yang. He's the son of the CEO to a major manufacturing company, specializing in labors. As an act of rebellion against his father, he joins the police force and requests to be part of the unit. So he's essentially a nepo baby trying his damnedest to not be like a nepo baby. And to his credit, the guy definitely shines on the job he actually hates and really only sticks to out of spite. Yeah, a lot of Asuma's early stuff revolves around him trying to find ways to ditch the job, but he grows to love the work and his team, even building a will-they-won't-they relationship with Noah, who he contrasts in pretty much every way. While Noah is more optimistic and happy, Asuma is more cynical and hot-headed, though he's far more clever than Noah, even leading the charge on some of the more subtle work that the unit needs to get done, i.e. infiltrating somewhere and investigating things he probably shouldn't be getting involved with. But he's roped into it by circumstance and just plain bad luck. The two's dynamic is a pretty major part of the series, starting off as comrades, then slowly building up to a romantic interest, though it's still kept vague on how far the two will really get with each other. Their dynamic is a fun one. They're both likable and their personalities give plenty of opportunities for funny scenes and legitimate conflict, especially as they do grow closer and the stakes get higher. And there's far more characters than just these two. You also have Captain Goto, who gets a ton of development himself, starting off as a typical ballbuster, but later on you see there's a far deeper and savvy guy underneath. Some moments it looks like he can barely care about his job, others you see he's willing to do anything to keep the unit alive, even bending the law to get the outcome he wants, though never in a malicious sense. He just knows what situation needs nuance. A lot of the characters get similar amounts of fleshing out, not all the time. I mean, Oda stays pretty much a joke character from beginning to end, but there's a clear case of major character development. Honestly, that's one of Patlabor's biggest strengths, the writing for both the world and characters. It's just a good story. A good story helped by some seriously kick-ass action. This was the days of old hand-drawn animation, so there's a ton of detail that still looks good to this day. The labors feel weighty, and the action scenes have serious impact. They don't hold back on the absolute destruction these things can cause if a situation goes bad. Now, despite saying that, it's actually not that brutal. You're never gonna see anything to the level of like Evangelion in regards to gore. No, it's actually a pretty tame story. Hell, very rarely do you actually see people die. It's only in very specific circumstances like one of the movies or things like that. Death is kept pretty minimal, because the tone isn't really meant to be dark, gritty, or violent. I mean, it's pretty lighthearted in a lot of other aspects. But they also address that the mere presence of these things are a serious intimidation factor. Hell, that's the entire point of the unit in the story. Having the big stompy robots with huge guns walking around is a good way to deter crime. It doesn't always work, especially when the bad guys also have labors, but it's better than not having them, which actually plays into the themes of the story. Now, each movie or episode can cover different ideas, but there's a few constants between all of them. The role of the police, and how can they police a world that is changing at such a rapid rate. Technology is advancing far beyond anyone can keep up with. Terrorists are getting access to nuclear weapons and military-grade labors, launching attacks and trying to smuggle them wherever they can. I mean, it's just kind of a shit show. It happens so often that some of these incidents slip through the cracks, which can have major consequences. Patlabor 2 is about one of these incidents exploding in a very bad way. It also talks about the general Japanese society and what a world would be like in a state of peace, as the setup for the world is that things are a generalized peaceful state. though you quickly see there is still very much a Cold War brewing beneath the surface. This peace is barely hanging on by a thread if it even existed in the first place, and the series proposes the idea that maybe peace can't last long term, especially with the advancement of technology. Something is going to bubble up and destroy it because it's new opportunities to cause chaos, maybe out of self-centered greed, nihilistic joy, apathy, or whatever motivation the evil party pretends to have. Patlabor 2 especially delves into this with Suge, who is a strictly military mind contrasting the law enforcement mentality of the protagonists, and the film delves into this more than once. He's probably the best villain in the series since he has a lot of time to delve into his motivations and history, seeing how the peacekeeping world completely screwed him over and just caused more tragedy. He's still a maniac, but a maniac that you can see being created in this world. Now, a lot of the other villains can just amount to basically being douchebags, bank robber here and there, communist terror group on occasion, over-the-top asshole that the protagonist needs to stomp with the big robot, but Suge definitely stands out due to how much detail he gets, dipping pretty damn close to he's just right territory more than once. He's still evil, he still needs to be stopped, but his motivations aren't completely insane. Of course, he's just one guy in a movie compared to the swaths of other material the series has, which you should definitely check out. Each one can have a different vibe while still very much feeling like what Patlabor should be. Sometimes it's dour and grim, other times it's genuinely hilarious. So depending on your preference, you'll find something to like about this series. You might be one of those people that vibes a lot more with like Patlabor 2 or 3, where it feels a lot more in line with like Ghost in the Shell or Genro more than the original anime, being a lot more about the politics and the world building and having a more heavy tone compared to, goofy cop robot shenanigans. On the other hand, you could be one of those people that prefers the original anime and the manga and don't really like it when it gets dark and depressing. You would like that to be a special occasion rather than be the default tone to what Patlabor should be. And it makes sense that you're going to have this ping pong of tones considering the people that worked on this worked on, much more grim, brutal anime stuff, and also a lot more lighthearted things. They have experience with both comedy and drama, and Patlabor's kind of their way of mixing both together while dedicating to one or the other on very special occasions. Patlabor just feels like a classic, and it's up there as required viewing for fans of mecha. The scales don't get as high as like Gundam or Evangelion, which deal with more cosmic level threats, but the smaller scale actually kind of helps it in a weird way, since the world now needs to feel like its own universe without worrying about interstellar colonies to shake things up. It can't dip into hard sci-fi, so it makes what it can work on Earth itself. And it puts a lot of effort into selling this alternate future. Patlabor has a lot to appreciate about it, not just the stellar animation, but things like the soundtrack as well, which can stick in your brain for a while. It's an earworm. You have some classic J-pop mixed with some synth elements. It does try to lean into kind of the cyberpunk feel, but I think it's pretty damn good music aside. The characters are all fun, feeling fleshed out and authentic to the setting, and the politics of the world are interesting to delve into, seeing this tightrope of trying to keep the world from exploding and utterly screwing up sometimes. And the series isn't dead, something I was convinced of for a little bit. Before starting this video, the most I remember about Patlabor were the manga, OVA, the anime, and the first two movies. But it's still got a pulse. Not just because of the recent stuff, like the live-action series and the OVA that dropped in 2016, there's a new anime coming out pretty damn soon, Patlabor EZY. So really, this is sort of similar to City Hunter in a lot of ways. You remember the old stuff and think it ended there, but it's actually been persisting for decades. Which makes sense, it was beloved when it came out, so obviously that momentum would keep pushing it forward as long as it was just regularly updated, which it has been, even if some of it's more obscure than others. You should definitely check out Patlabor. There's a lot to dig through, so if you're on the lookout for a new series to sink some time into, this is a good one. Now, if you just want to watch the movies, you can do that, but you'll definitely feel like you're missing out on some stuff. At the very least, check out the manga for more context, or the OVA just to introduce you to the cast. That's if you want to rush through it, because, the original anime is 87 episodes. That's a little bit of a time sink to ask someone to just sit down and get through. Still, there's gonna be something about this series you'll love, whether it be humor, action, characters, world building. Patlabor is just fucking good, and it's got a really solid fan base. There are videos dissecting the timelines coming out to this day. Hell, there's an entire retrospective that came out that goes over the whole series, like 2 weeks ago. Patlabor isn't the most famous mecha series, but it's not a slouch by any means. Hell, I didn't even go into the various games it had, both full license titles and cameos and stuff like Super Robot Wars and City of Giants. There's the upcoming Scramble Vice, which is shamelessly inspired by Patlabor, being about a mechanized unit of the Japanese police force. Some pretty obvious inspirations there. You even have a tomboy as the protagonist. The game looks really good. Can it come out soon? Like really soon, please? Please? Yeah, I could keep going, but you get the idea. Patlabor is good. It's a fun series, and it's still getting love to this day. It's an easy recommend, so you won't regret giving it your time. And if you hate Noah, I'll hate you. She's awesome. Be nice to her. She just wants to get drunk and play with her giant robot. I wanted to be vague on a lot of story stuff because there is a lot of story here. Now, the original anime is pretty damn episodic, but the movies themselves are big, self-contained stories, and I don't want to spoil what happens in those. And I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. Also, yeah, you should just sit down and go into the series blind. There's a lot of twists and turns, so definitely don't want to spoil those either. Plus, it's just a fun watch. If I gave the plot away, some dude might feel like they already know everything and not get the series a shot, which would be a shame. Watch it. It's fun. It's mechs fighting terrorists. That's cool. The series is cool. And do you want to know what else is cool? Gamer subs. Use code TAL at checkout. We're in April now, so get your gamer subs. Tornado season fucking sucked. But at least there's gamer subs. Use the code. Use the code. Use the code or the drunk tomboy won't show you her giant robot. Use the code. That's all I can say about Patlabor. A brief look at a massive series. Something way bigger than I ever realized. And if you're an addict for mecha anime, then this can be your heroin for a little bit. You won't regret it. I can't wait for the new anime. It's probably going to be boatloads of fun. So long as they can keep it authentic to how the original felt, I think it'll be a pretty damn good time. We're getting that and a new Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, the next few years are going to be fucking hype. Things are looking good, guys. We might be back. Until next time, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys. Hey, loser, do you want a shirt? Do you want a t-shirt? I have shirts now. Look in the description for a link to a t-shirt you can buy. If you don't buy the t-shirt, I'll kill your family. If you don't buy the t-shirt, I'll poison your dog. If you don't buy the t-shirt, you're going to be the only person in town that does not have a t-shirt. Everyone's going to look at you funny. There's going to be social consequences to not having one of these t-shirts. I'm now making express threats of violence against you if you do not buy my t-shirt. I will call the police, tell them how you're not buying my shirt. They're gonna plant crack in your house, and they're gonna arrest you and then beat you up in a jail cell. Buy my shirt.